I want you to picture a scenario, and I'm willing to bet this is going to feel pretty uncomfortably familiar to, like, a lot of you listening right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So you have been studying English for years. And I don't mean just casually. I mean, you have really put in the hours.
Yeah, you've done the work.
Exactly. You've sat in the classrooms. You've taken all the standardized tests. You've highlighted, I don't know, thousands of pages of grammar textbooks.
You probably have every language app on your phone, right?
Yes, exactly.
Huh?
Every app. And you silently consume hundreds, maybe thousands of videos and articles. And in the safe, quiet space of your own head, your English is practically flawless.
Right, because you know the rules.
You know the rules, you have the vocabulary locked away, but then you step into a busy coffee shop or you log into a high-stakes Zoom meeting, and it is finally your turn to actually speak out loud.
And we all know what happens next.
You completely freeze. Your voice just vanishes.
It's a total system override. I mean, your palms get sweaty, your heart rate spikes, and it's like your brain just encounters a fatal error and completely shuts off.
Yeah, it really does feel like a fatal error.
It does. The words are in there. You know they are, but they absolutely refuse to travel from your brain to your mouth.
It is a truly universal frustration. And today, the mission of this deep dive is to completely reframe how you think about that exact moment of freezing.
Which is so important for beginners to hear.
It really is. We are unpacking this genuinely transformative guide from the channel Talk English, and their core thesis is pretty revolutionary if you've been feeling stuck in this cycle.
Yeah, it totally shifts the blame.
Right. It shifts the blame away from your intelligence, away from your memory, and points it at something completely different. The thesis is basically this. Your English isn't actually bad. Your mouth is just untrained.
Which is just a massive shift in how we look at this. Because, you know, when people freeze up in that coffee shop or on that call, the immediate instinctual assumption is that it's a personal failing.
Right, like you're just not smart enough.
Exactly. You think, oh, I'm not smart enough, or I didn't study hard enough, or the classic, I just don't have a natural talent for languages.
Oh, I hear that one all the time.
Right. We internalize that freeze as this fundamental mental failure. But this framework completely flips the script. It argues that speaking a language is not a mental test of your vocabulary. Not at all.
So what is it then?
It is a highly active, strictly physical output.
I just find that so incredibly relieving. It really takes the moral weight off of the learner.
It does. It frees you up to actually practice properly.
Exactly. And we are going to spend this time unpacking exactly what that physical output looks like. We want to provide a highly actionable roadmap today.
A very specific one.
Right. So by the end of this deep dive, you are going to have a specific, physical, daily routine to break through those mental blocks. But before we get to the cure, let's diagnose the disease.
We have to talk about the trap of silent study.
Yes, because we live in an era where passive consumption isn't just easy. It's the default.
It really is. I mean, the illusion of knowledge is stronger now than it has ever been. You can sit on your couch, you can watch a 10-minute animated video explaining, like, the present perfect continuous tense.
Which is a nightmare of a tense, by the way.
It's terrible,
Yeah.
but you watch it, you nod along because the explanation makes logical sense, and you walk away thinking, okay, great, I know that tense now.
But you don't really know it, do you?
Not physically, no. Passive consumption only builds what linguists call receptive knowledge. It trains your brain's auditory and visual processing centers to recognize patterns when somebody else produces them.
Okay, so recognizing it when you hear it.
Right. But it does absolutely zero to train your physical body to produce those incredibly complex patterns yourself.
And this guide uses an analogy that I think perfectly isolates why silent study completely betrays us when we finally try to speak. They compare learning English to doing push-ups.
Oh, I love this analogy. It's so spot on.
It's so good. If you think about it, you could read 100 books on the exact biomechanics of a perfect push-up. You could memorize the exact angle your elbow should flare out. You could know the Latin names of every core and pectoral muscle.
You could pass a written exam on it.
Literally a PhD-level written exam on push-up form. But if you have never actually gotten down on the floor, put your physical weight on your hands, and trained your arms.
The very first time you try to do one, your arms are just going to shake, give out, and you will collapse.
Exactly. Because your muscles have zero physical conditioning. Your brain has the theoretical blueprint, but the physical apparatus required to execute it is entirely untrained.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture of language, the exact same biomechanical principle applies to the physical musculature of your face.
Right, really, like the actual muscles?
Yes, your jaw, your tongue, your vocal cords. When you speak your native language, whatever it is, you have been repeating the same specific sounds, the same tongue placements, thousands and thousands of times every single day since you were a baby.
That makes sense. We're constantly working out those specific muscles.
Exactly. Your lips and tongue are highly conditioned elite athletes when it comes to the gymnastics of your native language.
But wait, muscles are just muscles, right? Why wouldn't a tongue that is super athletic in Spanish or Japanese be just as athletic in English?
Because the choreography is completely foreign. Think of it like a world-class marathon runner suddenly trying to do an Olympic gymnastics floor routine.
Oh, I see.
Right. Yes, they are in shape, but the specific fast-twitch muscles, the flexibility, the spatial awareness required for a backflip are entirely different from just running in a straight line.
And English has its own specific gymnastics.
Totally. English has vastly different speeds, different stress patterns, different linking sounds. It requires you to place your tongue behind your teeth in ways your native language might never, ever demand.
Wow, okay.
It requires you to force air through your lips in completely novel ways. So when you try to speak English without physical practice, your facial muscles are literally weak and lazy in the context of those specific movements.
They physically just do not know the choreography.
Exact.
That reframes the anxiety trigger entirely for me. This guide specifically addresses the absolute beginner. You know, the person who opens their mouth and feels their mind just go completely blank.
Yeah, that freezing feeling.
Right. And I always assume that the blank mind caused the broken speech. But if I'm understanding this correctly, it's actually the other way around.
Precisely. It is a vicious physiological feedback loop. Because your mouth muscles are untrained for English, when you try to speak, the physical movement is just clumsy.
So it comes out broken.
The speech comes out broken, slow, or it just feels incredibly awkward in your mouth. And your brain's auditory processing center hears that broken speech, recognizes that it sounds wrong, and immediately perceives a social threat.
Oh, wow. So your brain is literally like, oh no, we were messing up in front of the tribe.
Exactly. It hits the panic button, adrenaline spikes, and your confidence just dies. You don't freeze because you suddenly developed amnesia and forgot all the vocabulary.
You freeze because your physical apparatus is struggling.
Yes. And that physical awkwardness triggers intense psychological anxiety.
Okay, so the core transition we have to make, like the absolute fundamental shift for anyone listening right now, is moving away from silent study and entering the realm of active physical training.
Yes.
We have to stop trying to build memory and start trying to build muscle coordination.
You have to start treating your practice time exactly like a physical exercise routine. I mean, if you want to run a 5K, you don't sit in a chair reading books about running.
Right, you'd never get faster.
You put on your shoes and you hit the pavement. If you want to speak fluently, you cannot just read English silently in your head. You have to physically move your mouth.
So the goal isn't more grammar rules.
Not at all. The goal is to build deep muscle memory in your lips, jaw, and tongue so they can handle the unique shape, speed, and rhythm of English without stumbling.
Which prevents that whole anxiety loop from ever starting in the first place.
Exactly.
All right, so if speaking English requires this intense, athletic, physical movement, what exactly are we trying to move? Like, what's the target?
The target is the rhythm of English.
Right, and the guide talks about breaking what they call the robot habit. And I know exactly what they mean here. You hear beginners, especially when they are super nervous, and they speak English word by word.
Yes, they over-enunciate every single syllable. They separate every word with a little micropause.
Because they're terrified of being misunderstood, right?
Exactly. They think clarity comes from separation. But in English, separation makes the language sound completely flat, mechanical, and frankly, really unnatural.
And it looks exhausting, honestly.
It is incredibly exhausting. From a physical standpoint, you are starting and stopping your vocal cords and your mouth muscles with every single word. It's like driving a car and slamming on the brakes every 10 feet.
Which brings us to the secret sauce of English rhythm, which the guide calls sound clusters. This is what we actually need to be physically training our mouths to do.
Yes, sound clusters are everything.
They define them as groups of sounds that flow together like music. They basically argue that fluent speakers don't actually speak words, they speak groups of sounds.
And what's fascinating here is that native speakers are almost entirely blind to this. It is totally subconscious.
Really? Native speakers don't know they're doing it?
No. If you ask a native speaker to write down what they just said, they will write out perfectly separated, grammatically correct words. But what actually came out of their mouth was a mashed together cluster of vowels and consonants.
Why?
For a learner, understanding and physically practicing these sound clusters is literally the skeleton key to unlocking a smooth, natural flow.
Let's look at some of the specific examples they provided, because this is where the physical reality of it really hits home for me. A beginner, doing the robot habit, might say every word perfectly. What are you doing?
Right.
But the guide points out that naturally this sound cluster physically compresses into what you're doing.
Right.
Or, and this one really caught me off guard, they noted that the phrase, did you eat, morphs entirely into, did I eat?
That specific example is just a brilliant illustration of how deeply sounds compress and shift when spoken naturally.
Wait, you have to explain that to me. Because when I read that example in the guide, did you eat becoming, did I eat, I was completely baffled.
It's confusing.
It totally changes the subject of the sentence. Am I suddenly asking about my own lunch? Why does the mouth do that?
I know it looks completely illogical on paper, but you have to think about the biomechanics of fast, relaxed speech.
Okay.
When you say did you, the D and the Y mash together, it usually becomes this J sound, right?
Yeah.
Did
The
ye.
big, I hear that.
But when native speakers speak really quickly and their tongue gets even lazier, that Y or J sound flattens out entirely. It completely loses its roundness.
So it just degrades.
Exactly. To a non-native ear that is desperately trying to parse the vowels, did ye eat loses the U sound and sounds bizarrely close to a schwa or an I sound, did I eat. The word you literally vanishes into a vague, lazy vowel bridge between the consonants.
That is wild. The mouth is essentially just finding the path of least physical resistance.
Exactly. Another classic example they use is I do not know becoming I don't know. It just glides. The hard T and the separate O sounds are completely smoothed over.
So if I'm a learner, why does sitting in my room repeating, I don't know, or what you're doing, over and over, actually improve my muscular control? Like, what is the science behind repeating these specific clusters to get better pronunciation speed?
Well, it all comes back to muscle memory and reducing the physical workload. When you practice a sound cluster rather than individual words, you are training your mouth to remove the hesitation.
You're moving those micro pauses between the words.
Yes, you are physically practicing the transitions. It allows your tongue and lips to glide through silent letters and execute those linking sounds smoothly.
Okay, so it becomes one motion.
By repeating the whole cluster, you are programming one single, fluid physical movement into your mouth rather than 3 or 4 separate, choppy start and stop movements. This dramatically increases your pronunciation speed simply because your mouth isn't working as hard.
You basically streamlined the choreography.
Exactly.
I can see how that speeds things up. But I have to push back here on behalf of the listener because, I mean, if I am deliberately blending words, dropping sounds, and saying things like, what you doing instead of what are you doing, aren't I just practicing grammar mistakes? Like if I'm trying to be professional in a Zoom meeting, won't I just sound informal or sloppy or, uneducated?
That is the ultimate fear for anyone who has spent years in a strict classroom environment being graded on perfect grammar. But this raises a really important question.
What's that?
What is real fluency? The truth that is hard for a lot of people to accept is that fluency lives in the sound flow, not in textbook perfect, separated vocabulary.
Really?
Yes, native speakers, even in highly professional environments, care far more about the rhythm, the energetic pacing, and the natural flow of the conversation than they do about robotic, syllabic perfection.
So you're saying that even if I compress the grammar or use a lazy vowel, if my sound flow is smooth and hits the right rhythmic beats, people will perceive me as highly fluent.
Precisely. In fact, if you use perfect grammar but deliver it like a halting robot, people will actually think your English is worse than if you make minor grammatical compressions but deliver them with native-like rhythm.
That is fascinating.
And furthermore, drilling these sound clusters builds long-term speaking endurance.
Oh, because of the energy saving.
Right. If you speak word by word, starting and stopping your vocal cords constantly, your facial muscles fatigue very quickly. It's exhausting. But when you glide through clusters, you conserve energy.
So this physical cluster drilling builds the stamina you actually need to survive, like a 30-minute conversation without your jaw aching and your brain just giving up.
Exactly.
Okay, the theory is incredibly compelling. We understand that we need to build muscle memory and practice sound clusters to achieve this native rhythm. But Knowing about the science is completely useless without executing it.
Right, you have to do the work.
We need to translate this theory into a highly structured, manageable routine. And the Talk English Guide actually designs a specific 5-minute daily physical drill for this.
A very structured drill.
Yeah, and I want to walk through this step by step. It starts, just like any actual workout, with a warm-up sequence.
You wouldn't walk into a gym and immediately try to deadlift your maximum weight. You have to stretch. And the exact same applies to your mouth.
Okay, so how do we stretch our mouth?
You need a simple physical movement sequence to warm up the facial musculature before you even attempt to speak English. Think about it. You have been speaking your native language all day. Your mouth is set to its default tension and its default rhythm.
So you need to break that tension.
Yes, you need to physically break that tension and shift your face into English mode.
They give 4 specific exercises for this warm-up. Lip rolls, tongue stretches, jaw loosening, and smile stretches. But reading those terms on a page doesn't really help someone do them right. Can you walk us through the actual physical cues?
Sure, let's break them down.
How do I execute this without hurting myself or just doing it completely wrong?
Well, first, the lip roll. Think of making the sound a horse makes when it shakes its head.
Okay, like a brr sound.
Exactly. Keep your teeth slightly apart, relax your lips completely, and blow air out so your lips vibrate rapidly together. It sounds ridiculous, it feels silly, but what it does is force all the rigid native language tension out of your cheeks and lips, prepping them for the explosive P and B sounds in English.
Right. It forces you to stop clenching. Okay, what about the tongue stretch?
The tongue is a massive muscle rooted really deep in your throat. For the stretch, you literally stick your tongue out as far past your lips as you comfortably can, pointing it down towards your chin, and just hold it for a few seconds.
And then pull it back.
And then pull it all the way back. This wakes up the base of the tongue, which is absolutely critical because English requires a lot of strange retracted tongue positions, like for the American R sound.
Got it. And the jaw loosening. Because I know a lot of people carry their daily stress in their jaw.
Oh, constantly. For the jaw, open your mouth as wide as possible, like you are faking a massive yawn. While it's open, take your index and middle fingers and gently massage the hinges of your jaw right beneath your cheekbones. You'll probably feel a lot of tightness there.
Yeah, definitely.
Finally, the smile stretch. Smile as wide and as hard as you can, really stretching your lips horizontally until you feel your cheeks engage, then completely relax your face. Do that a few times.
I really love the phrasing they use to summarize this part. A warm mouth is a ready mouth. By physically loosening that tension, you are literally prepping your biological hardware to make new sounds.
It's exactly like tuning an instrument.
Yeah. It reminds me of a musician tuning their instrument before a concert. You would never walk out onto a stage, pick up a cold, untuned violin that's been sitting in a freezing room and try to play a complex concerto.
No, it's not horrible.
And you might snap a string. You have to warm up the instrument first.
That is the perfect analogy. And once the instrument is tuned, once your face is flushed with a little blood flow and feels loose, you move to the core of the daily drill, which is the mirror technique.
Okay, the mirror technique. I have to say, this sounds intensely uncomfortable. Why are we bringing a mirror into this?
Because the mirror is your absolute best, most unforgiving feedback system.
Really?
Yes. Think about it when you speak to other people. Your eyes are on them. You are watching their reactions. You have absolutely no idea what your own face, your own mouth is actually doing. The mirror forces you to confront your own physical presence. It forces you to watch the biomechanics we just talked about in real time.
They give a very specific starter sentence for this drill. The sentence is, I am learning to speak confidently. So the instruction is to look in the mirror, maintain direct eye contact with yourself, and repeat this sentence 5 times, getting slightly faster with each repetition.
Right.
Now, I understand watching your mouth to check your form, but why the strict rule about maintaining eye contact with yourself?
Because eye contact specifically targets and kills the fear of judgment. For absolute beginners who freeze up, the biggest psychological hurdle is the intense vulnerability of being watched and evaluated while making weird sounds. Looking at yourself in the mirror is inherently uncomfortable. We are our own harshest critics.
That is so true.
Right. If you cannot look yourself in the eye while speaking English in the total privacy of your own bathroom, how are you ever going to maintain eye contact with a stranger in a coffee shop or a boss on a Zoom call?
Wow. That is heavy, but it makes total sense. You are systematically exposing yourself to the vulnerability.
Exactly. By watching your own mouth move and holding your own gaze without looking away in embarrassment, you are building immense psychological resilience right alongside the physical muscle memory.
You're getting used to the reality of you speaking English.
Yes, you are normalizing the sight and sound of yourself existing in this new language. You
Wow.
are proving to your brain that it is safe.
Let's organize this into a concrete framework for the listener, because we're throwing a lot of theory at them right now. I want to build a mental checklist that a student can use to track their progress during these 5-minute daily sessions.
I think a checklist is crucial because we need to completely change the metrics of what a successful study session actually looks like.
Right. Let's frame this as a psychological grounding technique to keep them focused on what actually matters. So point 1 on the checklist. Did I do my physical warm-up sequence? Like, did I actually do the lip rolls and jaw stretches? Or did I skip them because I felt silly?
Which a lot of people will try to do.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Point 2. Did I maintain eye contact with myself in the mirror? Or did I look away when I stumbled?
Also very common.
Point 3. Did my mouth feel loose and relaxed during the drill? Or did I feel myself clenching my jaw and tensing up?
Excellent point.
And finally, point 4. Did I focus on continuous physical movement, pushing through the sentence, rather than stopping mid-sentence to perfectly correct a vowel sound?
That checklist is a lifesaver. Because notice what is not on that list. You are no longer asking, did I use the perfect grammar? Or was my accent flawless?
Right, you throw those out the window.
You are asking purely physical and psychological questions. Did I execute the physical drill? It takes the abstract, terrifying concept of fluency and breaks it down into measurable, achievable, daily physical actions.
Okay, so we've got the foundation, the instrument is tuned, we are comfortable doing basic repetition while staring ourselves down in the mirror, but let's be real here.
It gets harder.
Standing in your bedroom, looking at your own reflection, is a highly controlled, safe vacuum. Out in the real world, conversations are just chaos. People speak incredibly fast, they interrupt you, they don't wait for you to find the right word.
Real life is messy.
So how do we take this physical training and prepare it for the absolute chaos of unscripted conversations?
This is where we graduate to advanced real-time training. And the primary tool for this is a technique called shadow speaking.
Shadow speaking, okay.
Right. If the mirror technique builds the foundational muscle memory, shadow speaking is arguably the most powerful tool ever designed for building real-time reaction speed.
Walk me through the actual mechanics of shadow speaking. Like, how do I actually do it?
Shadow speaking is the act of putting on headphones, playing a short audio clip of a native speaker, maybe a clip from a podcast, a YouTube vlog, or a movie, and immediately repeating what they're saying out loud.
Okay, I repeat after them.
But here is the catch. You do not hit pause. You speak over them, trailing just a fraction of a second behind their voice.
Oh, wow. So I am essentially acting like their echo. I'm literally chasing their voice.
Exactly. You are chasing them. But you aren't just trying to catch their words. You are trying to perfectly match their speed, their pitch, the exact rhythm of their sound clusters, and the emotion they are projecting.
That sounds incredibly difficult. Why does this chaotic chasing process work so well for rapid progress?
Because it completely, utterly bypasses your analytical brain.
How so?
Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that wants to analyze grammar, check verb tenses, and worry about sounding stupid, is entirely overwhelmed by the task of listening and speaking simultaneously. It doesn't have the processing power to judge you, so it just shuts down.
So you trick your brain into being quiet.
Yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, think about how babies acquire language. They don't study textbooks, they hear a sound in their environment, they copy it, and they repeat it.
They just mimic.
They don't analyze why a sentence is structured a certain way. They just mimic the melody and the energy of the speech. Shadow speaking forces adults to abandon their intellectual habits and drop back into that primal, purely physical mode of learning.
That's amazing.
It trains your ears to hear the rhythm, your brain to process it instantly, and your mouth to move simultaneously, which builds incredible real-time reaction speed for actual conversations.
I can see how that destroys the translation reflex. You literally don't have time to translate the English back into your native language. Think of a response, translate it back to English, and speak. You just react.
You're moving too fast to think.
Right. Now, alongside shadow speaking, there is another advanced tool mentioned for complex phrases. The Fluency loop. And this seems designed for when you hit a brick wall with a really difficult sentence.
Yes, the Fluency loop is a surgical tool. You take one single difficult sentence. Let's say, I would have gone if I had known.
Oh, that's a tough one. Lots of conditional grammar.
Exactly. It's packed with complex grammar and rapid sound clusters. You take that one sentence and you loop it. First, you loop it extremely slowly, like a slow motion video, focusing purely on feeling every single muscular movement in your jaw and tongue.
Okay, so super slow.
Then you loop it at a normal conversational speed, focusing on the flow. Finally, you loop it as fast as you physically can without turning it into total gibberish. You repeat this loop slow, normal, fast for several days with that exact same sentence.
I want to highlight how psychologically empowering that must be. If you are a beginner with a tiny vocabulary, but you take just one complex native-level sentence and you master it through the fluency loop.
You sound like a native for that one sentence.
Right. You suddenly feel incredibly fluent. You prove to your own brain, look, my mouth is physically capable of producing fast, native-sounding English. It totally shatters the limiting belief that you can't do it. It's a massive confidence hack.
It absolutely is. You are manufacturing a micro-success. And to ensure that this isn't just a parlor trick, to maintain long-term progress, this material outlines a highly consistent practice schedule. They call it the 5 stages of smart repetition.
Let's break those 5 stages down. Because repetition without structure is just practicing your mistakes until they become permanent. What is the architecture of this repetition?
The architecture goes from purely physical to highly psychological. Stage 1 is slow clarity. You say the phrase very slowly. You aren't thinking about meaning, you are purely focusing on the physical shape of your mouth. Are your lips round? Where is your tongue?
Just getting the form right.
Exactly. Stage 2 is natural flow. You speed it up to a normal walking pace. This is where you focus on those sound clusters we discussed earlier, making sure the words blend and glide into one another without micropauses.
Gliding, no robots.
Right. Stage 3 is emotion repetition. And this is a massive turning point. You take that same sentence and you inject radically different emotions into it. You say it as if you are furiously angry. You say it as if you just won the lottery and are joyful. You say it as if you are terrified.
That sounds almost like an acting class.
It really is. Stage 4 is pressure repetition. You push the speed significantly faster than normal, intentionally stressing your facial muscles, forcing them to maintain clarity under the pressure of intense speed.
Wow. Okay, and the last stage?
Stage 5 is real-world use. You take that sentence out of the safety of your drill and you intentionally hunt for an opportunity to drop it into a real live conversation.
That is a phenomenal roadmap.
Mhm.
But I want to slam the brakes and reverse back to stage 3 for a moment, the emotion repetition.
Uh-huh.
Because I feel like this transitions us perfectly into the final and perhaps largest hurdle of this entire process. We have spent all this time training the physical mouth. We've tuned the instrument. We've built the muscle memory. We've practiced the speed.
But there's still a block.
Exactly. If the brain is still internally panicked when you step into that coffee shop, the mouth will still freeze, won't it?
That is the ultimate bottleneck. All the physical training in the world is utterly useless if a psychological fear response overrides your nervous system.
We really need to drill down on advice specifically for those absolute beginners who still feel fundamentally frozen and terrified when speaking out loud. We need emotional encouragement strategies to stop that freezing response. How do we finally sync the panicked brain with the trained body?
There is a profound psychological observation made in this material that I think every learner needs to hear. The mouth cannot speak what the brain doesn't believe.
Whoa, the mouth cannot speak what the brain doesn't believe.
Think about it. If you were standing in front of someone, opening your mouth but silently screaming in your head, I'm going to sound stupid, my accent is terrible, they're judging me, your nervous system registers a threat.
Because you feel like you're in danger.
Yes. It will literally restrict your airflow, tighten your vocal cords, and lock your jaw. You are fighting your own biology.
So how do we hack that? How do we override that biology? The guide suggests leaning heavily into emotional energy to overcome the fear of making mistakes. But how does being emotional stop me from being afraid?
It comes down to where your brain is allocating its resources. When an absolute beginner tries to speak, they almost always speak in a flat, monotone voice. Why? Because 100% of their cognitive processing power is being desperately used to monitor grammar rules and vocabulary.
They're overthinking every single syllable.
Right. But when you force yourself to speak with intense energy, whether that is exaggerated excitement, deep passion, or even theatrical frustration, that raw emotion actually short circuits and bypasses the overthinking part of your brain.
Because you physically cannot heavily analyze abstract grammar rules while your brain is flooded with the chemicals required to express raw emotion.
Exactly. Emotion demands a flow state. It demands presence. And here is the great secret about human communication. People remember your energy. They do not remember your grammar.
Wow. People remember your energy, not your grammar.
If you walk into a room and speak with vibrant confidence, warmth, and emotional presence, a native speaker isn't going to stop and notice that you used the wrong preposition or messed up the present perfect tense.
Right, they're just connecting with you.
They are going to respond to the human energy you're giving them. Emitting strong emotion makes your minor linguistic mistakes completely invisible.
That leads directly into another fascinating strategy they discussed. They explain how acting techniques, like literally pretending to be an actor, can massively reduce anxiety during difficult English conversations.
It's a great trick.
I thought this was so bizarre at first, but the psychology behind it is actually brilliant. They suggest practicing your English like an actor, preparing for a role.
It is a phenomenal psychological trick for reducing anxiety. Think about what happens when you are just being yourself trying to speak English. You carry all the baggage of your own identity.
Well, the insecurities.
Right. You feel the weight of your insecurities, your past embarrassments in classrooms, your fear of not being respected. But when you act, when you intentionally pretend to be someone else, maybe a highly confident CEO or a dramatic character from your favorite English movie, you create what psychologists call psychological distance.
I see. You are putting on a mask.
Precisely. You turn off your internal self-judgment because in that moment, it isn't you who is struggling or making a mistake. It's the character.
That's so clever.
Acting out a sentence in your bedroom with wildly exaggerated emotions strutting around the room, being loud, being dramatic, breaks the rigid, fearful, frozen state your brain usually associates with the English language. It teaches your nervous system that English is just a flexible tool for expression and play, not a terrifying academic test that you are currently failing.
So, by being a little ridiculous and dramatic in my bedroom, playing different confident characters, I am actually creating real mental shortcuts. Does putting on this emotional mask help stop the habit of translating everything in my head?
It absolutely stops the translation process. Think about what translation is. You are taking a purely intellectual concept in your native language, finding the intellectual equivalent in English, and speaking it. It is entirely cognitive.
It's just mental math.
Exactly. But when you use acting and emotion, you are connecting the English words directly to a raw feeling and a physical state of being. You associate the English phrase, "I am so excited," directly with the physical feeling of your heart beating fast and a smile on your face, rather than associating it with the translation of "I am excited" in your native language.
You completely bypass the middleman of your mother tongue.
Yeah.
That is incredible. And this holistic approach doesn't stop at just facial muscles or internal emotions. I want to talk about the rest of the body. The framework describes how full-body movement and hand gestures actually reinforce correct English pronunciation. Why does it matter what my hands are doing, or if I'm sitting or standing?
Because the body and the voice are not separate systems, they are intrinsically linked. First, movement anchors memory. If you are slumped over in a chair, staring at a screen, your breathing is incredibly shallow, your energetic state is low, and your brain is in a passive resting mode.
Right.
When you stand up, open your chest, and engage your whole body, you drastically increase blood flow and oxygen to the brain. You build a powerful, undeniable physical presence.
And how does that affect rhythm?
Well, hand gestures literally help you hack the rhythm of English. English is a stress-timed language. We punch the important words and swallow the unimportant ones. You physically use your hands, like literally chopping the air or tapping your leg on the stress syllables of a sentence, your mouth will automatically follow your hand with more clarity and force.
So if I am struggling to get the natural rhythm of a phrase right, physically tapping my hand on a desk on the most important words will literally force my vocal cords and mouth to pronounce them with the correct native-like stress.
Yes. Your vocal apparatus syncs with your gross motor movements. You cannot have a dynamic, fluid, powerful voice trapped inside a completely rigid, frozen, unmoving body. If you want your English to flow, your body has to move.
This has been an absolutely phenomenal deep dive. I feel like my entire understanding of language acquisition has been turned upside down in the best way possible. We have covered an immense amount of ground today.
We really have.
To summarize for everyone listening, we have completely fundamentally reframed what it means to learn to speak English. We established that fluency is not an innate genetic talent, and it is not a test of how many flashcards you have memorized. It is an athletic, physical training process.
It's a workout.
It is about building deep muscle memory in your lips, tongue, and jaw through a highly structured 5-minute daily physical drill. We talked about the necessity of physically warming up the mouth. We discussed using the mirror technique to look yourself in the eye and systemically kill the fear of judgment.
Right.
We learned how to drill sound clusters to build that beautiful, effortless native rhythm and long-term stamina.
And we bridged the gap between safe practice and real-world chaos. We covered advanced techniques to build lightning-fast reaction speed, like shatter speaking and the fluency loop.
And most importantly, we ended with the psychological master keys, using raw emotional energy acting techniques and full-body movement to override the deep-seated anxiety that paralyzes so many absolute beginners.
Exactly.
The core promise of this entirely physical approach is so incredibly empowering. You do not need to be a genius. 5 focused physical minutes a day is all it takes to literally rewire the musculature of your mouth and the pathways of your brain. There's a brilliant, powerful mantra from this guide that I want to echo right now as a piece of emotional encouragement to anyone who feels stuck. It is this: your fluency begins when your fear ends.
I love that.
You have to stop hiding in the comfort of silent study. You have to be willing to make the ugly, clumsy sounds. You have to be willing to do the weird mouth stretches in your car, to stare at yourself in the mirror, and to perform the dramatic emotional acting in your bedroom.
Because that physical, slightly embarrassing work is the exact price of admission to unlock your voice.
It really is entirely within your control.
Yeah.
Whenever you feel yourself freezing up, remember, it isn't about perfectly memorizing a dictionary. It is simply about training your body to perform a new dance.
Beautifully said.
And that leads me to a final, somewhat provocative thought that I want to leave you with today, something for you to mull over the next time you sit down to practice. We started this deep dive by talking about the universal frustration of freezing up. You know, the terrifying feeling of your identity vanishing when your brain goes empty.
Yeah.
But if speaking a new language is truly, fundamentally a physical act, if it involves literally building new facial muscles, establishing entirely new breathing patterns, and adopting new bodily gestures and postures to match a new rhythm, then learning English isn't just downloading a new set of vocabulary words into your brain. The process is literally physically molding you into a slightly different version of yourself. Your face moves differently, your body moves differently, you express emotion differently. So as you embark on this physical training, the most exciting question isn't just, when will I finally learn to speak English without making a mistake? The real question is, who are you going to become when you finally let that new voice out?